Good morning. My heart is heavy today, thinking about what happened last night in Florida, or early this morning in Florida. Thinking about what happened earlier this year down south in San Bernardino. And I wanted to just spend some time with you, and because we're friends, and we spend a lot of time together, and I just wanted to suggest something and tell you something that's on my heart. Telling you what to do, you telling me what to do, building a wall, tearing a wall down, making some more rules, taking some rules away, making our rights less or more is not working. It's obvious because all this rhetoric, all this talk of we need to take this away, we need to do this, we need to do that, is not working. And yet I'd like to suggest something that I suggested earlier this year that may just work. Here's what I am convinced of. Both the people that did what they did in Southern California earlier this year and the person that did what they did last night had neighbors, just like you, just like me. They had neighbors with big hearts. They have neighbors that are retired. They had neighbors that work at public schools, private schools. They have neighbors of different religious views, of different ideals, of different walks of life that never knew them. Because we are so afraid of meeting somebody new. We are so afraid of knocking on someone's door and saying, "Hi, my name is Matt. I'd like to be your friend." Well, you wouldn't use my name. You would use Vicky or Zakia or Tony or John or Steve. Whatever your name is, that's the name you would use. I'm convinced there's an answer, and it's neighbor to neighbor. It's us getting to know each other again that would stop some of this senseless violence, this senseless abuse of humanity. It's getting to know each other again. See, in the old times in America, you knew your neighbor. You knew what was going on in your neighbor's house. If the barn burnt down, the community got together and they built a new barn. If tragedy hit, meals were made. Supplies were taking over and you shared what we had. And I'm thinking still, the answer is a present love. It's being present in people's lives. Living in apartments, living next door to somebody and never knowing who they are is not the answer. Judging them and telling them what they should or shouldn't do, they ought not wear those things, they ought not love like that, they ought not do these things, is not working. It's only serving to divide us. That's all it's doing. The answer is to knock on someone's door and extend your hand, extend your heart, because you're a loving person. You're a kind person, and your kindness, your love, your ability to let other people know that they're cared for is, in fact, the answer. I remember during different tragedies how that I would make a meal and I would carry it over to somebody, Peggy. I would carry it over to them and I would knock on the door and I would say, "We made this meal." I went and bought some pizzas and I took some pizzas to a house where a tragedy had struck. You know, they did not remember my words. They did not remember the things I said. To this day, you know what they remember? They remember the gentle knock on their door and the extending of 7 or 8 pizzas to meet that need that night. I'm convinced, I'm certain that if you and I would make a meal and we would carry it next door, and you say, "Well, they will reject me. I don't know that I can trust them." The truth is, you don't know. You don't know because you don't know them. We've never knocked on their doors. We've never reached out to shake a hand. How many times have you gone to the supermarket and asked a question of somebody and never, ever gotten their name? Today, I was buying some fruit at Rayleigh's, and I walked by and I needed some vegetables. I needed a cucumber, and Manuel was there, and I didn't know Manuel. I didn't know his name, yet he was working the vegetables there, and so here's what I did. I reached out and I shook his hand, and as I reached out to shake his hand, he says to me, He says, oh, I heard what happened last night. And I said, listen, my name's Matt, and I'm your friend. And he says, I'm Manuel, and I'd like to be your friend. And for 3 or 4 minutes, we stood there and we talked. We chatted, and we agreed that the answer is to care for one another. The answer is to find out people's first names. The answer is to find out what's going on, because when we do that, then we get ideas, we get knowledge. And that knowledge, there's something about a meal or a cold drink in the name of love. There's something about doing that is a lost art today. It's a lost art. I compel us, I implore us. I believe the answer is not a wall. The answer is not to take our rights away. The answer is not wrapped up in telling somebody what they can or cannot do. The answer is for you and I, the 2 or 3 people that are watching right now, the 2 or 3 that will watch later, for you and I to walk across the hallway, go downstairs, knock on the door, get to know those people around you. Do you know our neighbors? Do we know anything about them? They have hearts just like us. They're brokenhearted, they're lonely, they're distant from us, and they desperately need somebody just like you, who cares for people. And see, and I know, I get to meet some of the most amazing people every single week. I call them LGs, lunch girls and lunch guys. You work in public schools. You work with some of the best people on the planet. Each other. Yeah, you work with each other. You're the best people on the planet. And you work with students. You serve students. Every day you get to be in their lives. Every day. And because you know things about them. You know, and you change their lives. That same principle can be done with our neighbors. You say, I'm afraid. You're afraid of the unknown. That's what you're afraid of. You're afraid, just like me. I get afraid of the unknown. And the unknown is the unknown until I knock on that door. I need to go knock on that door. It's neighbor by neighbor. It's not building a wall or tearing a wall down. It's not taking away rights or enforcing more rights. It's not spending billions of dollars to try to keep somebody out. Maybe it's going to Popeye's Chicken and getting a bucket of chicken. Maybe it's going to Colonel Sanders. Maybe it's going to your kitchen and making some tacos and going across the way and serving somebody. Maybe it's making a casserole, a tater tot casserole. Maybe it's roasting some vegetables and going over there. Something to get to know your neighbor. And if every single one of us got to know our neighbor, if every single one of us once again just reached out and got to know our neighbor, what would happen? What massive change would occur? You say, well, there's only me. I know. And you're an amazing person. You're an amazing person. You love big. You care big, don't you? You say, but Matt, I'm afraid. I think you're afraid is because you've been watching the news too much. You've been reading the newspaper too much. You've been sitting around talking about the tragedy too much. Imagine with me if somebody would have just loved those people. If they would have just loved them, if they'd just known them, they would have known something was wrong. They would have known something was wrong. This tragedy that happened at a college recently where a guy violated a girl. The answer is to love people genuinely. And loving people is not about you. It's not about what you get out of the deal. It's about what you get to give in the deal. Somewhere he missed out on real, genuine love. Somehow. And for us to obliterate ourselves to the point where we're beyond caring, that is so sad. We live in these communities, we live in these places now that we don't even know each other. The only place we know each other is through work. What about our neighbors? What about those people that share that community mailbox? Do you know who number 7 is? Do you know who number 3 is? Do you? We ought to. That is simply, Michelle, it's the answer. It's the answer. Vicki, I'm telling you, I believe it's the answer. Janice, it's always been the answer. Steve, for you and I to get to know one another, for you and I to reach out and meet people. Recently, well, it was about a year ago now, I was in a Payless Shoe Source, and I had the amazing privilege of meeting a mom, a victorious mom, a super mom. She ought to really go down in the hallways of history as a super mom. She's raising 3 amazing kids by herself, amazing children by herself. And as she does, she's making such strides in her family. You say, well, she's got it made. No, she struggles. She struggles. And we got to talk. We got to talk and we got to know each other. It's about knowing each other. It's about knowing and reaching out to people. It's not about building a wall or tearing a wall down. It's not about making another law. Because listen to me, trying to legislate goodness does not work. Legislating goodness doesn't work. What has to happen is the heart has to be liberated to be able to serve other people. That's what we must do. When we do that, it makes all the difference in the world. First of all, get liberated. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? I'd like to make a suggestion or two. It's to take your eyes off of everybody else and thinking what they ought to do. That's the first step. After you take your eyes off of everybody else and what you think they ought to do or what they ought not to do, I believe the answer is to really, really focus on yourself and becoming the very best person you possibly can. Becoming the very best image of yourself that it's imaginable. It's unimaginable what you can do when you focus on yourself and do exactly what you need to do, And listen, here's where I think it starts. I think it starts by spending time with your family. Spending time with your family, watching your grandkids do the wave area and celebrating them and being part of their lives and doing that. Being engaged. The greatest gift that we can give each other is to be present in people's lives. To be present in people's lives. Knock on that door. It's neighbor to neighbor. That's what will change everything. That will improve everything. This next time that we come together, listen to me. Reaching out to people and judging them and trying to tell them what to do, trying to tell them what's right and what's wrong is not working. Here's what works. What really truly works is when you and I spend time with each other. We spend time with each other. We meet each other's needs. And when there's a need for a cup of water, we give a cup of water. When there's a need for a casserole, we do a casserole. I believe that our communities can be changed one meal at a time if we just reach out to each other. I witness this on a regular basis with the people that I get to serve. I get to serve the most amazing people on the planet. Like I said earlier, I call them LGs. LGs, they're the lunch girls and the lunch guys that serve our students on a regular basis. They serve them meals, and I watch them love them. They love them without touching them. They love them through their look, the way they smile at them, the way they talk to them, the way they engage with them. That's what will make the difference. You and I walking across the street, meeting somebody, cutting one of those roses off of your rose bush and going across the street and meeting somebody and say, I've been growing these roses and I'd like you to have some. That's what makes all the difference in the world. Being present with your family, being there, not telling them what to do, modeling to them what it is to live a life that can have a grin on its face, a life that's enjoyable. You say, well, my life is a mess. No, your life is like everybody else's life. It just has some things that goes on. It just has some issues, just like the rest of us. All of us have issues. All of us come with rough spots. And that neighbor, that person that's near you, they need you. The reason they need you is because you're a heart of love, aren't you? You have a heart of compassion. You are a cheerful person. They need you. They need to meet you. You are the change agent in their lives. And let me just say once again, I do not think the answer is a new law. to take away some rights, to give some rights, to build a wall, to tear a wall down, to make it illegal to do this or that, or make it legal to do this or that, or to preserve what we have and all of that. None of that is working. What works is when we go back the old school ways, when we go do what the old school was. And the old school was, we picked up some food, we made a meal, we walked across the street, and we met our neighbors. I think we need to do that one meal at a time, one neighbor at a time, meeting each other, caring for, and genuinely loving. Listen to me. Now, some of you are not going to like me when I say this. This whole thing of, well, we're just going to go do this and we're going to get real intimate real fast. That's not working, is it? Those things aren't working. What works is knowing each other. It's caring for each other. It's not by telling somebody what to do or what not to do. What it is modeling genuine love. And we need that as never before. We need genuine love. And here's what I know. Here's what I know. You that are watching this right now, each of you, yes, I'm talking to each of you. Each of you are big-hearted people, and you have strangers that live right next door. Right next door. The answer is no longer I don't think it's a neighborhood watch. I think it's a neighborhood get to know each other. I think it's a house by house, a person by person, knowing each other, treating others the way you want to be treated. My grandmother used to say that on a regular basis. Matt, just treat people the way you'd like to be treated. And I thought that meant that if I did that, then everybody would treat me right. Later, she had to re-explain to me that it really had nothing to do how they would treat me. It had everything to do to prove that I was a big person, that had a big heart. And here's what I know about you that are here this morning with me. You've taken the time to be here this morning. And you didn't even know I was going to be here, but somehow we stumbled across each other. I know you're a big-hearted person. You care for people. You serve on a regular basis. You are the answer to our culture. It is neighbor by neighbor, door by door, casserole by casserole, cold drink by cold drink, and just knowing each other. Listen, I am Matt, and I'm your friend. I want to eat with you. I want to have a meal with you. I want to drink some sweet iced tea. And if you don't like sweet iced tea, then regular tea. And listen, I prefer it not be that's purchased. I prefer it's the kind of meal that you and I make together. I believe that's the answer. That's why we need to do those things. Okay? I'm Matt, and I am your friend. Listen, you can reach me by email at success@mattupton.net, or you can call me or text me at 916-708-8103. And as you get ready to close and get ready to turn this off and let you get back to your life and the things that you're doing, behind me is a lake. Bustles with life. It bustles with all kinds of life. Not one of the fish, not one of the birds, not one of the little bugs that I can't even see, not one of the mosquitoes, not one of anything that's behind me is arguing with each other and trying to legislate to the other what to do. They're just busy being the best version of themselves. My encouragement to you, my encouragement to myself, is to be the best version of yourself. Allow these tragic moments, rather than to make you afraid and hide you in your house, let them compel you to get out, to meet other people. Take a casserole, knock on the door, and if you need to, tell them, I need to know you. I need to know you. There's some people to know you. You make the difference. You're a big-hearted person. You love big. I know you do, because we know each other. You love big. Thanks for spending time with me. Have a great, satisfying Sunday.